And I'd like to give each and every one of you a very warm welcome to this morning's event, where we are in for a real treat. A presentation by Egypt's Minister for Planning and International Cooperation, Ashraf El-Araby. It's a great honor to be welcoming him here this morning. He's here for the World Bank spring meetings, but we've managed to catch him for an hour to hear his thoughts about Egypt's future economic plans and their challenges ahead, and there will be many challenges that he'll be facing. But we all hope that with new leadership, Egypt can rebuild its economy and get back on a solid footing. Today's program is part of the Middle East Institute's ongoing deep dive into Egypt, where we look at the social and economic related issues, which are really at the heart of what most Egyptians want, and that's job and economic opportunities. Just 4 days from now, there'll be another event. Please put it on your schedule. On Monday, April 14th, we're hosting the Dean of the Business School from the American University of Cairo, who's doing really important work on entrepreneurship, which is very much part of the plans for the future in Egypt. So now it's my honor to welcome Mr. El-Araby. A full bio is in your packet. I won't take his time away from him by going over it in great detail, but he's extremely experienced. He's an economist. He specializes in planning and economic development. He has experience in finance, housing, migration, wages, all the important economic issues that Egypt will be facing now and in the future. He was appointed Minister of Planning on March 2014, but he'd had that position in previous cabinets as well, and for years he's been doing work in developing the 5-year and annual economic and social development plans for Egypt. So this is a man who knows what the challenges are. He knows what the fixes are for Egypt. He's going to tell us a little bit about it this morning. Our Vice President for Policy and Research, Paul Salem, will be with him asking questions, and then we'll open it up for you to ask questions as well. So again, welcome.
Well, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. It's really a great honor and a pleasure to be here with you this morning, and thanks to the Middle East Institute for inviting me and for organizing this event, and for giving me this golden opportunity to talk about Egypt and the Egyptian economy, and to address this group of intellectuals and distinguished audience. Given the time limit, because they told me that I have only 15 minutes to talk, so I'm going to just try to send a few messages regarding the current economic situation and challenges that we are facing in Egypt these days, and how the government is dealing or going to deal with these problems. And in fact, I want to just highlight the most important challenges that we are facing in Egypt nowadays. Of course, I'm going to focus on the economic challenges per se, but of course, the first challenge is to restore the political stability in Egypt, because as we all know, political stability is a prerequisite and a necessary condition for restoring economic stability. Overall, I believe that Egypt is doing well. Egypt is on the right track to establish an inclusive democracy. We are committed in the government. We are committed to the roadmap that was announced last July. I believe we are doing a good job in this regard. The referendum of the constitution. Now we have a new constitution. We have the new election election law has been issued recently. The new presidential election will take place on the 26th and 27th of May. I believe the parliamentary elections also will take place before the end of this summer. So overall, I believe we are on the right track. Of course, there are some challenges, some obstacles, some mistakes happen, but this happens everywhere during the transitional period, and here in the United States, in all European countries. So Egypt is no exception, but I believe overall we are doing good in this regard. The second challenge, in fact, is me as a Minister of Planning to have a comprehensive and widely agreed upon and inclusive development vision and long-term strategy for Egypt. I believe is crucial for the future of our country. To be frank with you, Egypt historically we had several visions, tens of strategies, but none of these strategies were agreed upon and comprehensive enough, and no buy-in, I mean national buy-in for these strategies. That's why we don't, practically speaking, we don't have a vision, a long-term vision. What we are doing now to address this challenge that we have already started officially last January. We have a good and big group of intellectuals and experts from the NGOs and the private sector. And the good thing now is that it's not anymore, we are not preparing another government document, and we call it strategy and vision, but we need to have an inclusive strategy, development strategy for Egypt, and we are talking about the time frame 2015 to 2030, so for the coming 15 years, and this is consistent with the UN agenda talking about development beyond or post 2015 agenda. So we are working on that. The good thing is that the NGOs and the private sector is not only involved in this process, but in fact they are taking the lead in this process to make sure that we have this kind of ownership for this strategy. We started officially in January, and our target is to finish this before the end of this year, before December 2014, to start the implementation in 2015 and beyond. So I believe this is a very important issue that I wanted to share with you. The third challenge is how to restore the confidence in the Egyptian economy. This is extremely important, to restore the confidence in the Egyptian economy, and the key words in this to restore this confidence, I believe, is fiscal sustainability. So fiscal sustainability is the magic term for restoring the confidence in the Egyptian economy. Of course, everybody is asking what are you doing to reform. What are the reform actions and the measures that Egypt is going to take? What about the negotiation and the agreement with the IMF? And are you going to start another round of negotiation with the IMF? And the simple answer to this question is no. We are not going to talk with the IMF about a new loan, budget support loan, in this transition, during this transitional period. To be clear, we see that it's better to leave it to the coming elected government, and when we have a new parliament, so it will be much easier for them to talk about this. But the more important issue in this regard is to start as soon as possible our reform program. So whether with or without the IMF agreement, we, Egypt, the Egyptians, need to take serious actions to deal with these structural challenges that we are facing. Of course, I was involved in the negotiations with the IMF last year, and the two big tickets that we were talking about to restore this, the fiscal sustainability is, first one is energy subsidies, to rationalize the energy subsidies, and the other ticket is tax reform. So talking about the tax reforms, just to give you one figure, it's a very indicative figure. The tax revenues represents only 15% or less from the gross domestic product, the GDP of Egypt, and this is extremely unsustainable. So that's why we are talking about reforming the taxation system in Egypt, and to move to the value-added taxes instead of sales taxes. So we are working on the new budget now for the coming fiscal year that starts on July 1st, and we are planning to move from sales tax to VAT starting from July, and I believe the Minister of Finance, and he will be here also, and he can talk more and elaborate on this issue. We have some other reforms in the taxation, but this is the big ticket, moving from the sales tax to value-added tax. The other thing is energy subsidies, and we are very serious. We are very serious about reforming our energy subsidy system, and we are now introducing the smart card system, and now we have. The system will be ready within just a couple of weeks. A few weeks. I'm very sorry. A couple of months or so will be ready. We issued already 2 million smart cards. So we have still remaining around 2.5 million cards. So we are working on this seriously, and we will start the implementation. Of course, we will take some actions also to gradually reform the pricing of energy in Egypt, and I believe that we are very serious and committed to start this as soon as possible, even before the presidential election. I believe some actions will be taken, and will communicate this to the Egyptians very clearly, and we'll talk about how to and at the same time to have or to establish a very solid social safety net in Egypt, so to better target the poor and the vulnerable areas, and I believe we are working on this seriously, and I believe we are on the right track in this regard. The fourth challenge that we can talk about is how to restore a moderate economic performance in the short, at least in the short term, and high growth rates in both middle and long term. So in this regard, again, political stability is crucial, and we are working on that. We in the government is even in the last government, Dr. Biblawi's government also, we injected two stimulus packages to stimulate the economy. The total amount of these two stimulus packages was amounted to 64 billion Egyptian pounds, around 9 billion US dollar, represents almost 3% of GDP in Cairo. So this will help a lot, and the packages were allocated to very important labor-intensive projects to create more jobs, and to also to attain social justice in Egypt. For example, some of these projects, for example, is to provide infrastructure for 35 industrial zones. 15 out of these 35 are located in Upper Egypt, so it will do the dual targets, stimulating the economy and at the same time making a good progress in the area of social justice. Also, we are working on in reforming our investment climate in Egypt. So nowadays we are working on trying to review all the investment laws in Egypt, trying to solve the disputes, the investment disputes. We paid, the government arrears for the petroleum, electricity, construction companies. We paid already around $2 billion US dollars in the last few months. So again, we are moving ahead in this regard. The fifth is, challenge is creating enough and productive and decent jobs for the youth. So again, this is a very big challenge. In fact, the unemployment rate nowadays in Egypt is more than around 13.4%. More than 3.7 million Egyptians are unemployed. So to create jobs, not only jobs but we are talking about productive and decent jobs in formal sector, not in the informal sector, as was the case at least during the last few years. And getting back to the economic growth, because we have, in the last 3 years, Egypt, the growth rate in Egypt was around 2% growth rate annually, and this growth rate is either equal or less than the population growth rate in Egypt. This means that the per capita income in Egypt, in real terms, did not change at all during the last 3 years, let alone the issue of income inequality and income distribution. So again, to restore this, before January 25th, 2011, even before that, before the world crisis in 2008, Egypt, the growth rate was around 7% or so per year. So at least we need to restore this growth rate again. Let me just jump to the social safety net issue, because it's a big challenge to establish a comprehensive and integrated social safety net in Egypt that better target the poor and empower them, not only to target them, but to empower them to get out of the poverty vicious circle. So the key word here is creating a system for a unified database for all types of subsidies. That's exactly what we are doing nowadays, to have a unified database for all types of subsidies, and to move to a cash transfer or conditional cash transfer gradually. And with the help of the World Bank, they are giving us support in this very important program. Also, another main challenge is to restore the balance between population and natural resources. So, of course, when we talk about the population challenge in Egypt, we are talking about 3 dimensions. The first one is high population growth rate. It's more than 2% now in Egypt. Some estimates, the CAPMAS, they told us that it becomes around 2.5% now. It's very, very, very high. And also the redistribution, because we are using only 7% of the total area of Egypt, so redistributing the population. So through starting some mega national projects such as the Suez Canal Corridor, the New Valley, the Golden Triangle. I mean, we have, of course, Sinai is another important issue. The northern south, the northern coast also is a mega. I mean, mega project that we are talking about these days in Egypt. Also, the last dimension of this population challenge is the characteristics of the population. And here, thanks to the new constitution, now we have the new constitution enforce any government to allocate at least 10% of the gross national product to education, health, and scientific research. And I believe this will make a big difference in this regard. Another challenge, I believe, is the term. I mean, how to introduce the term accountability to the Egyptian society. So, in establishing inclusive democracy, information dissemination law, effective monitoring and evaluation system, NGOs involvement in this regard. I just want to highlight two important initiatives that we started already in the government. The first one is to publish all the details we have now. I mean, if you go to the visit the Ministry of Planning website, you'll find the GIS portal system that has all the details of all the government projects that is undergoing. And we have now two initiatives. The first one is من حقك تعرف. It's your right to know. So to disseminate the information is very important. And the other one is راقب or observe. You need to follow up, to monitor and evaluate, and then hold the government accountable for what they promise. I believe this is also very important. Energy is a major challenge in Egypt, and to be frank with you, in Egypt we don't have an energy strategy for the country, and that's exactly what we are trying to do nowadays in Egypt, to have this strategy for energy, and we are talking now about the energy mix, and to renewable, to invest more in renewable energy. And this, of course, has strong ties to the pricing, to the issue of pricing, the energy pricing in Egypt. So I believe we are working seriously on this, and I believe we have I mean, international experts working with us to have this strategy completed. Another important economic challenge is how to reform the wage structure in Egypt and the labor market in Egypt. It's a big issue nowadays in Egypt. It's not only, we are not talking only about minimum and maximum wages and all these, but we are talking about reforming the wage structure itself. Is very important. And I mean, we have what we call the National Council for Wages, and we are working, and with the help of the ILO, we have some experts from the ILO working with us also to deal with this structure problem, and to have a new wage structure that better link wages with productivity and cost of living. Maybe the last point that I want to share with you today is how to. I mean, it's another challenge, in fact, and me as a Minister of International Cooperation, it's how to mobilize and better allocate the international resources. whether financial or technical assistance to support and to be aligned with our priorities. And we are talking with this to all our development partners here in the United States, in Europe, with the World Bank, with the African Bank, with the Islamic Bank, with all our development partners, that we have our priorities ready. I mean, we are working. I mean, these are the sectors that will give. We need to allocate resources for these areas specifically. I mean, of course, we have the education and health are still top priorities for the Egyptian society at large, but also investing in infrastructure, water and sanitation, roads. I mean, all these areas are very, very important for us and for the sake of economic growth and social justice also. So again, mobilizing these resources and better allocating these resources according to our priorities is another important challenge that we are dealing with these days. Again, I'm very sorry if I'm a little bit late. Take more than 15 minutes, I believe. Sorry about that. But again, I'm really glad to be with you, and I'm ready to answer any question if you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Araby. A really wide-ranging presentation. You touched pretty much all the main issues. I want to maybe probe on a few questions and then open it up for the audience. You started by talking about the need for a new vision on the socio-economic side. And if we look back at the recent Egyptian history, you had the Nasserist period, which ended up having a vision of sorts, kind of a socialist vision and so on, which had a lot of political impact as well in terms of his popularity and so on. Then we moved into, under President Sadat and Mubarak, al-infitah, opening, and an economic system which was more or less market-oriented, but still was rather controlled and managed to some degree, and created, as you said, moderate growth, but also created very high unemployment, inequality, and led to a condition which ended in revolt, actually, in 2011 because of obvious socioeconomic reasons other than the political reasons. Now, moving forward, post-revolution or post-revolutions, is there indeed, or what would you describe as the new vision? Is it sort of a return to infitah with some adjustments, fix it here and there, or is there something really new that can be presented to the population in terms of jobs, in terms of the different sectors, or is it kind of a return to simply stability and let's get the moderate growth that we had, which didn't lead to the results that everybody wished for? So how would you describe the new vision, if it exists, on the socio-economic level?
Well, thank you very much. Let me just tell you that, as I mentioned in my speech, that we have started this process. We started this process last January. We have. I told you that we are not talking about the government vision or so, but we gave the lead to the private sector and to the NGOs. This means that we really believe in the important role that the private sector and the NGOs have to play in the new Egypt. So we are very serious on that, and to have inclusive vision is very important to address the main challenges that we are facing and historically faced in Egypt is very important. So we identified 10 pillars for this new vision. Of course, social justice is one, to have a competitive economy is a second pillar. I mean, of course, freedom and democracy is very very crucial. Education, building a new educational system in Egypt is also. I mean, we specified 10 pillars, just to be short. And again, we are trying to elaborate and to get into the details of this. How, I mean, to agree first on, or to get a consensus on the what do we need for Egypt in the coming 15 or 30 years or whatever, and then where we are now and how we get into this. Over the coming few years, you see what I'm saying? So we are still working on this, and I told you that we are in this process, and we plan to finish this before the end of this year, 2014. And everybody here is welcome and invited to participate in this, and we'll have very soon, maybe within just next week or a couple of weeks, we'll have a website for this, just to get everybody involved in building this new vision.
Okay, thank you very much. On the issue of resources, which you mentioned, as well as the international cooperation aspect of it, you mentioned energy. I would also like to ask about water. Obviously, there's a big issue emerging on the Nile water issue with the Ethiopian dam and so on. If you could tell us a bit about, the planning, the vision, whether it's cooperation or tension, and the water situation and the water future. And if you could go back and touch a bit more on the international aspect of energy exports and imports. You mentioned, obviously, the subsidy issues, how that relates to pricing and consumption, but how do you see Egypt's energy profile and partnerships regionally and internationally? Where is it importing from in the future? Pipelines. So water and energy, which Egypt needs to live.
That's a very important question. In fact, I mentioned in my speech that one main challenge that we are facing in Egypt is how to better use our natural resources. And if we maybe I talked about energy and the energy strategy, but water is a big issue, and it's an important challenge also. Talking about the Ethiopian dam, of course, we have many concerns. We have many concerns, technical concerns on the dam. The dam. They don't have a feasibility study for the dam, and we are working with our friends, and we to get out of this. But again, it's not an easy task. But what is more important from my point of view is how to invest more in water desalination projects, because this is extremely important for especially when we talk about renewable energy. So the water, the desalination is extremely important, and also to rationalize our use of to improve and reform our irrigation system is also a crucial issue in this regard. But again, we are dealing with this in a very comprehensive way of thinking, and I believe we are. But it remains. It's a big challenge. It is a challenge, and we need to fix it. And we are working on that. I believe.
Energy import, export, pipeline issues.
Of course, we have what we really need to focus on is the issue of pricing energy, because we have this gap, this deficit between in our petroleum balance. So trade balance. I believe addressing the issue of pricing will help us solve this energy.
Okay, and digging a bit deeper on the pricing issue and on the, you said the scheme of issuing the consumption cards and so on to manage the movement away from broad subsidies in energy. The energy subsidies are useful, support the poor, support sort of the middle class, and also benefit the industries and the upper classes and so on. Some need those subsidies, some don't need those subsidies. Could you tell us a bit more about how this new pricing policy, how it will have impacts on different sectors of society, just to understand also moving forward which groups might protest, which groups might accept it, how can it be presented to the population?
Well, thank you very much. Well, in fact, again, targeting the poor is a big ticket. I mean, if we talk about reforming the energy subsidies or the subsidies, in large, the latest figures, the official figures that we have in Egypt is that the poverty tells us that the poverty rate is around is more than 26.3% of Egyptians. So targeting the poor is a big part of it, and using this smart card. I mean, for if we talk about fuel subsidy specifically. So again, we started this. We distributed 2 million smart cards. We still have to distribute at least 2.5 million more. But the other issue, or even the more important issue, is how to link, to have this, I mean, comprehensive social safety net, and to link all the databases together. In Egypt, we have different databases for, I mean, the ID, the national ID. We have the ration card system. I mean, we have different databases. So by just linking this, and I believe it will, I mean, technically, I'm talking technically now, it will take at most 2 or 3 months at most to link these databases. And once we have these databases linked, we can move into cash transfer gradually. And of course, if we make this as a conditional cash transfer, not unconditional cash transfer, this will help us also achieve several other development goals that we are talking about.
Okay, thank you. On the tax-based issue, a lot of the business activity in Egypt, of course, is still in the informal sector. Yes. What is the vision, what is the plan to encourage or to push that activity into the formal sector, to give it benefits, but at the same time to be part of the tax base and expand that tax base for the economy?
This is another important question. In fact, I mean, informal sector in Egypt represents more than 75% of the private sector in Egypt. So it's a huge. Of course, maybe the minister of finance can talk better than me in this regard, to give some incentives to the informal sector to move into the formal sector. But I believe that the more important thing is how to stop this. I mean, in the future, to encourage all new companies to be straight into the formal sector instead of informal sector. So I believe we have different incentives packages that we are talking about now in Egypt, just to encourage the informal sector to be in the formal sector. But it takes time. It will take time, and just to convince people. And of course, the credibility of the government is really important in this regard, because the people they need to be convinced that getting involved is beneficial for them. I mean.
My final question before turning it to the audience relates to the different sectors in the Egyptian economy. Much of the investment in the pre-2011, a lot of it was in real estate or some services. But the big sectors that would create lots of employment are certainly agriculture and related, downstream agribusiness and so on, and manufacturing. Now, certainly Egypt has manufacturing, has a base, but it has not taken off as an exporter of manufacturing, which was key to countries in Asia, key for Turkey and Egypt. So these two big employer sectors, agriculture and export manufacturing. What do you see that's new in the vision and the policies that might really ignite these sectors?
In fact, we are working on this. To prepare an industrial strategy and policy for Egypt for the coming period for 2015 to 2030, and we have a group of experts working on that, both industrial and the manufacturing and agriculture. Of course, we have competitive advantages in some sectors. We need to build on these and capitalize. And of course, historically we have competitive advantage in textile, for example. So dealing with this, with the state-owned enterprises in an innovative approach, I believe will help these enterprises being more competitive, and to, of course, giving support to the private sector. And I told you that we are in our stimulus package, we allocated enough money to provide infrastructure for 35 industrial zones all over the country. So I believe this will also give some incentives to the private sector to that, of course, improving the business climate and reviewing the investment laws also will help attracting more investments, foreign investment, to these two sectors specifically, and of course solving and dealing with the issue, the problem of water will also give more incentives to more investment in agriculture sector.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I think we have roving microphones. Let's start at the back. I think Marina Ottaway has your hand up. Keep your hand up so the microphone can find you. Thank you. And introduce yourself.
Marina Ottaway with Woodrow Wilson Center. You mentioned that the Constitution requires minimum expenditure on health and education and social services of about 10% of the GNP. How does that target compare to what is spent at this point?
Okay.
And would that require, reaching the targets require a major reallocation of the budget?
Thank you. Let's take a few questions.
Okay.
And then from here, sir. Yes.
Morning. Thank you for your elaborate speech. You spoke about...
If you could introduce yourself.
My name is Ahmed El-Kadri. I am a consultant. You spoke about restoring confidence in the Egyptian economy. And part of restoring the confidence is to encourage foreign investment and tourism, which is a major part of the income for Egypt. And at the same time, in order to do that, you have to address, in my opinion, three major issues. One of them is security, and the second one is the power failures that are happening now on a daily basis. And the third factor would be the random strikes of the workforce without, in my opinion, might be wrong, without a reasonable motive for it. Thank you.
Thank you. And question here? Here, thank you.
Thank you very much for your talk. Andrea Rue, Middle East Institute. I would like to know what the role of the military will be in these reforms of the economy.
Can you say that again? Sorry.
What is the role of the military in the economic reforms? Let's take those three questions, and we'll have another round. Tfaddal.
Okay. Regarding the constitution that said that the government needs to allocate at least 10% of GNP, gross national product, to education, health, and scientific research. This simply implies that we need to increase our allocations to these three sectors, education, health, and scientific research, by at least 140 billion Egyptian pounds in the coming 3 years. At least 140 billion Egyptian pounds. So this means that we need at least to double our spending on these three sectors. Of course, I totally agree with you, Mr. Ahmed, that restoring confidence we need to focus on I mean, tourism and foreign direct investment is very important issues. Of course, I mean, security. I totally agree, but again, security is correlated with political stability. So I believe that once we move forward in our roadmap, and I believe we are doing a very good job in this regard, the security will be restored. I agree with you that power failure is another big challenge, and I talked about this. And again, we are talking now about a new energy strategy for Egypt, and also to deal with the issue of subsidies, energy subsidies. So pricing is very important. Also, this will help us not only to overcome the short term or the problem in the short term, but also to give more incentives to the private sector to invest more in this sector. I agree with you that these random strikes also is another issue, and I believe that now we have a new law that try to organize this. Of course, I believe this will also help in fixing this problem. Regarding the role of the military and the reform, the military does not. I mean, if we are talking about economic, the economic reform specifically, there is no rule for the military in this. Of course, sometimes we allocate money for some companies affiliated to the military, but this is just because they are very efficient. They can do it very quickly, and I mean, they have a quality assurance also. I mean, in fact, I'm talking about I mean, the infrastructure projects. I mean, the stimulus packages that we are talking about. So, but otherwise, I believe the military does not have any role in the economic. Again, it's just I mean, it's increasing jobs will be through establishing new, I mean, projects, investing more and more, but not, I mean, through this will not take place through the military companies.
Okay, let me take the gentleman here on the right, and then we'll go back.
Alex Shalabi, I'm a member of the Middle East Institute. Mr. Minister, thank you very much. Dr. Salim talked about the evolution of the economy over the last 6 decades, from Nasser's centralized government-controlled, basically, economy to a more liberal economy through President Sadat and President Mubarak. The question is, what kind of vision do you see for the future that the private sector would play in the economic development of Egypt?
Thank you. The gentleman in the very back.
Thank you. Your Excellency, welcome to DC.
Thank you.
My question will be focused on...
Could you introduce yourself, please? Thank you.
Salah Awais. I'm engineering consultant, energy storage and deformation processing, and adjunct faculty with Towson University. My question will focus on some of the heavy industries in Egypt, starting with Hilwan Steel Works, Alexandria Copper Works, Dekhela Steel Works, and Naga Hammadi Aluminum. And we add to that the castle in Al Mahalla Al Kubra about weaving industries. What is the status of all these heavy industries in Egypt? Are they back healthy again and working? Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman right there.
Mr. Minister, welcome to Washington, D.C. My name is Sam LaHood. I used to work for the International Republican Institute in Egypt, and as you might recall, we were put on trial because of the work we were doing there at the time. Your predecessor, Faiz Abu Naga, at the time had accused me and my colleagues of seeking to undermine Egypt to divide the country. And there was a broader allegation that foreign funding was being used to foment unrest within Egypt. I'm curious what your thoughts are on those allegations and if you have a different view. And I'm also curious if that's still the view of the Egyptian government.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Thanks. Tfadal.
Well, thank you very much. The role of the private sector, of course, the private sector will remain the main player in the Egyptian economy. What we are doing now is just to pave the way for the private sector to work in a better circumstances and better environment, and I believe the private sector share in GDP is more than 70% of the GDP, and it creates or provides jobs for more than 60 or 65% of the labor force in Egypt. So again, the private sector will remain the key player in the new in our new visions that we are working on nowadays. But of course, the social responsibility of the private sector is also crucial, given the social justice is a main demand for both revolutions. I mean, the 25th of January and 30th of June. Regarding the heavy industries and Engineer Salah, I talked about reforming the state-owned enterprises and companies, and now we are working seriously on this. And I, as a Minister of Planning and chair of the National Investment Bank in Egypt, I am working closely with the Minister of Investment and our of course under the supervision of His Excellency the Prime Minister himself and our Economic Committee group, working on designing a reform program for these state-owned enterprises and to get them back to be more competitive, regardless of the subsidy. We need to empower them to be more competitive, and we are ready to invest more in these companies, but under one condition: to have a reform program for this for each of these companies. Once we have that, I believe we'll invest more and we'll inject more money in these companies. Regarding the last question, NGOs, when I came to the office after Minister Abu Naga, I really do respect her a lot, and I was one of the team in her cabinet before I was appointed as a minister. And I talked to our American friends, and I told them, let's try to start a new chapter. But we need to make sure that this new chapter will be based on mutual respect to each other, and to have a unified vision for the country. Of course, NGOs, the main problem. Do you stand by those comments, though? Sorry? Do you stand by her comments? No. Let me clarify that I am saying that what we have, the main problem was that dealing with unregistered NGOs is not allowed according to the Egyptian law, but I should say that I am a believer in the important role of the NGOs in development, And I personally was one of the team who worked with the UNDP in the Human Development Report. This was back in 2008, and the main theme of that report was the rule of, or I mean the thematic subject was the important role of the NGOs in development. So again, all what we need is just to respect the Egyptian law and to have a good coordination in this. Of course, I can say that we also have some problems that we need to work on it, but also our American friends need to work with us seriously on this issue.
Two last questions. Gentleman right there, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor. I appreciate your being here. I'm Glenn Griffin with the State Department, and I just want to note that our Secretary of State recently complimented those, he quoted Teddy Roosevelt, mentioning those who are in the arena trying to make changes, and I appreciate that you're doing that. You could be a comfortable economics professor somewhere, but you're trying to make some changes. That's good. But they're very difficult, as you've outlined. The problems are very difficult on subsidies, on the size of the state sector, the need for investment, for a better investment climate. My observation is all of the Egyptian government agencies involved with this recognize these problems. The finance ministry, your ministry, the central bank. It's widely known that these reforms are needed. The problem has come in the past several administrations, from the SCAF administration, the Morsi administration, the current administration. The problem is that the economic recommendations are sometimes not implemented by the political level because subsidies are so popular, because high state salaries are so popular, because there's a demand for more jobs, not fewer jobs in the state sector. As you know, the World Bank and others have always said that part of subsidy reform is to have a valid and worthwhile communication plan to explain to the people what you're doing. What is the current government doing to overcome the political opposition from both the people and some political leaders to these subsidy reforms and other economic reforms?
Thank you. A final question, the lady right there.
Hi, I'm Yasmin. I'm a current master's student at Johns Hopkins. I was just wondering, with the high levels of Egyptian immigration outside, even before 2011 and especially since 2011, has there been, and with the wealth and knowledge and experience that a lot of the Egyptian diaspora has there been any initiatives to bring Egyptians back or just to build stronger relations with the Egyptians abroad to help in reconstructing the economy?
Thank you. Tfaddal, Mani.
Well, I totally agree with you that I mean that challenges are well known, and the measures that need to be taken are also well known. But the political will is the main issue. And I always say that there is no good time for reform. I mean, but now the situation becomes unsustainable. We cannot sustain like this anymore. In Egypt, the budget deficit reached 14% from GDP in last June. This very high level of budget deficit. We need to deal with this problem seriously, and I believe that the current government is seriously taking this into account, and I believe that there is a political will. The president himself is welcoming these reforms, and I totally agree that it's just all about how to communicate this to the normal Egyptians, and how to convince people and to keep the credibility that you will target the poor, and the poor will benefit from these reforms. I believe we are working on that this time professionally, more professionally. We have professional team working on the communication campaign, and I believe we are working on it. And once we are ready, I believe this will be within the coming few weeks or so. We'll be ready start the campaign and the implementation. As I told you, this will be the reforms will be gradual, the gradual reforms, but we have to start. We have to start now, not later. So that's why I told you that some of these measures will most probably will be taken before the starting of the presidential election. So I believe we are working on that. Initiatives to build strong relations with Egyptians abroad. In fact, as you know, remittances is one of the main source of GDP in Egypt. But we are talking about building strong relations with the Egyptians abroad. I told you that we will establish a new website for the vision for Egypt for the coming 15 years or so. This will be, I mean, the website will be online very soon, within just a couple of weeks or so at most. So you are invited, and your colleagues and all Egyptians are invited to get part of this building, I mean, a vision for our country, and to give support to this vision while implementing it. So it's you are more than welcome to participate in this. But what we are doing now is to make this more institutionalized. So through to talk. For example, I have this afternoon I have some talks with the Egyptians working in the World Bank and the IMF to get their views also about our vision and our reform policies, and so we are working on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Dr. Araby. A very important dive into the social and economic challenges facing Egypt. We all follow, obviously, the political and security developments, which are also of great concern, but the economy is also key. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. We wish you luck in the challenges ahead, and please join me in thanking you. Thank you very much.